Happy Friday and welcome to the Wolff Den, presented by Win Again Academy. Mark Moyer doing some great things with his informational and networking events. They have a shortcut to finding your dream job, 2-night masterclass, June 1 and 2. Check out winagainacademy.com. I'm Matt Wolff, founder and CEO of Ticket Time Machine. Very happy to welcome Joe Delagrave to the Wolff Den this morning. How are you doing?
Hey, man, doing well. Thanks for having me in the Wolff Den. Appreciate it.
Yeah, looking forward to this conversation. I know we had it booked and then we had some changes made, but glad that you were able to reschedule. So appreciate the flexibility. For
Absolutely.
the people who don't know who you are, give us a quick introduction and then we'll get into it.
Yeah. My name's Joe Delagrave. I live in Wisconsin, Wisconsinite, land of the cheese and the beer and the Packers and the whole thing. And I'm a husband, father, keynote speaker. I speak on victor mindset and helping people find their permanent victory. And then in the next 90 days is an exciting time. I'm a Paralympian, two-time Paralympian now. Just got named to the Tokyo squad, heading over to Tokyo in about 89 days, where we'll be. That's our first game anyway, countdown, and we'll be taking on the world, and hopefully we're coming home with a gold medal. So it's an exciting time in our quad as Olympians and Paralympians are getting announced and getting ready to go over and represent Team USA.
Well, that's awesome. We're looking forward to it. Hopefully you can bring home the gold.
Yeah.
So I guess let's start at the beginning, and talk about how you became a Paralympian.
Yes. Yeah. So the genesis of the story really starts in college. I played college football for a Division II school, Winona State University in Minnesota, right on the Mississippi River there. And I always loved athletics. I always loved being a part of a team. And man, I always loved figuring out what part of the puzzle I fit in, whether I was a role player or a leader or a starter. It was fun to figure that out as a team environment. I always joke that I did plays and musicals as well. I kind of crossed the border of jock and thespian, and I did the plays because here's the deal. I was pirate number 7 in the Pirates of Penzance in high school. That's a big deal. That is a big deal. Not number 6, not number 8, number 7. That's a lucky number right there. But no, all joking aside, sports has been a huge part of my life, and receiving that coaching and receiving some of that affirmation that's built in was a big deal. And in between my freshman and sophomore year of college, I had an accident on the Mississippi River where my buddy accidentally hit the bottom of the river. We were in a back slough. You never know how deep or shallow the water is. And boom, I go from 6'6", 260 pounds playing football and kind of living out my dream and on top of the world to I'm laying in a boat. I'm paralyzed from the chest down. I broke my neck at the C6 and 7 level, 6 and 7 vertebrae down from the base of your skull, and life changes. So that's kind of like the beginning of my journey as a Paralympian. Yeah,
that's a lot to unpack there. First of all, you probably could have been on Glee, right? You could have sang and been.
Yeah, man. I mean, exactly. Come on now. Yeah.
But it looks like you're doing great stuff now, and it's crazy the paths that people take, what could have been, what is now. I always think about being paralyzed like that, and for someone like me who's so active, and think about someone like you to think I might be sitting there hoping that it ends, instead of having to go on and go through this. And I'm sure that's a huge thought for a lot of people. Yeah. And that's probably one of the great things that you do, with your speaking and your rugby playing. I guess you didn't even say you were in rugby, but that's what you do. You're in the rugby game. So let's dive into that a little bit, because I'm sure that's a big thought for people.
I love that you bring that up, because I think in those moments, in those valleys, is where character's built or the blame game grows. There's a path we go down, and you talked about paths, and I think my story at 19, it's a very romantic time at 19, because you're in college and you're trying to figure out life, and you're dating, and you have all these dreams and desires and goals and ambitions. Everyone does, and it's like this built-in fork in the road. But instead of a fork, there's about a million different paths you can go down. And we choose it, and whatever happens, happens. But when something bad happens, when something devastating happens, because paralyzed, laying in the boat is devastating, or for anyone listening, whether that's disease or disability or depression or divorce, or like just a bunch of different things that can happen in life and do happen in life. And then we're stuck in this moment, and it is devastating. Like you said, it is a point where I remember one time in the hospital where I go, is this worth living? Like being in a chair? My identity is completely gone, ripped away. And I'm wrestling. I'm a man of faith. I'm wrestling with like, I don't want to know what, like, everyone's like, trust the Lord. And I'm like, no, like I want to know what's going on here. I'm 19 and I want to figure this out. And so I love being just real in that moment and vulnerable in that moment, because that is the start of everything. That's the start. I mean, you can look at my success or look at, Joe in a chair and call it whatever you want. I think sometimes we call it inspirational porn. It's like, oh, this guy's doing well and he's in a wheelchair, and that's great. My life doesn't suck as bad as his. So that's really inspiring. But really, I think we can go, let's take some personal responsibility here. Look in the mirror and go, what have I been through? What valley have I been through? And did I make a choice to move on? Did I make a choice to find opportunity within my obstacle? Or did I take the lazy way out? Did I take the easy way out and say, you know what, it's not my fault. It was the other person, or it's the disease, or it's, whatever circumstance or obstacle you're going through. It's really easy to point and play the blame game. And I did that for a second in the hospital, or in the year after, where you kind of go, woe is me. Like, nah, this life really sucks.
Yeah.
But there's a point where you either say, yes, I'm gonna do something with my life, or you kind of get stuck in this rut of the blame game.
Yeah. Were you a man of faith beforehand?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in a Christian home and faced something really important. My mom instilled that in us, and that's something that's very important to me to this day. I truly believe that God has a purpose for my life, and it goes way beyond playing a sport. But yeah, but it was definitely something that I wrestled with. I think everyone kind of wrestles with it and tries to make it their own, or figures out like, what is this for me? And laying in the hospital bed, man, like I did not want any feel-good Bible verse. I did not want any inspirational quote. I wanted to understand what was going on. I wanted to know if there's a purpose in this. I wanted to know if life was going to be okay, because at 19, you have all these questions swirling around in your head already. We said, go ahead.
When did you know life was going to be okay?
It's been a process, man. Like it was never, for me, it was never like one click. But there was a spot in the hospital about a month into my stay there. I stayed there for 3 months. A month into my stay, we had gotten a call from our youth group in my hometown. This 16-year-old kid named Josh was in a truck accident. He was at the state fair in Iowa. We lived on a river town bordering Wisconsin and Iowa, and he lived over across the river in Hawkeye country. And he was driving home on a dirt road, was thrown from his truck, broke his neck as well, but died on impact.
Ugh.
And I remember kind of realizing, wow, I can pout about this, but I can also look and really recalibrate where my thinking is, and go, like, I got a second chance. Like, I'm alive, I'm breathing, I've got a mind that works. And I started to focus on like what is instead of what isn't. Yes, I like my body's not working the way it was, and there's a lot of things that are coming at me going like, you're gonna have to use a catheter the rest of your life. You're gonna have to figure out how to poop. Like, that's the real deal, man. Like, everyone says like, oh, the wheelchair must be hard. Like, no, like figuring out everyday activities when you're 19 and someone tells me like you're gonna have to pee differently and poop differently.
Well, I got to tell you something funny. Well, kind of funny. I don't know.
Yeah.
I have no disability, and when I was having a conversation with my sister about like if I could change one thing, like almost like a superpower or whatever, it would be that I don't ever have to go to the bathroom again. Because even with all the stuff I do, it's still a challenge.
Yeah.
It's like you always are worrying about it. Where are you? Like when you're traveling overseas, it's not that easy to find a bathroom. You're in a place to live. So it's funny that you say that.
Matt, that is like the best superpower I've ever heard. I've never heard it, and I think it's genius. Yeah, I'm 100% with you.
yeah, it would be. I mean, I'm sure there's better ones. I could figure out a way to have them kind of combine. It's like
Yeah.
if you asked, can I have like, 3 wishes, and then you ask for $1 million and like ask for extra wishes. Like
Right.
you gotta find the loophole on how you can have it all, even though
That is the real
giving you
deal.
something like that. We talked about words. Words mean different things to different people. We use the word faith and paralyzed, and they mean different things for me and you. I'm
Yeah.
not a man of God. I'm Jewish.
Okay.
Me, Jewish
Yeah.
is more of like a race for me, and I'm
Sure.
proud to be Jewish.
Yeah.
But I have faith that everything's going to be okay and everything's
Yeah.
going to work out. And I talked to my family about that, and my wife with, we're worrying about how we're going to do this and how we just said, I don't know, but everything's going to be okay. I felt that way when I was depressed and I was going through my thing. But the word paralyzed was a feeling that I had when I was depressed. And we kind of used that word, and it's like, yeah, I was paralyzed, but I wasn't, right? Like, I don't know what it truly means to be paralyzed, which is a powerful thing.
Yeah. It's interesting because like you don't understand it, but then at the same time, I think most people understand a point in their life when they are paralyzed by fear, paralyzed by something in their life. And I used to hate when I first was injured. I used to hate people like using paralyzed out of context. I'm like, what a jerk, But I've it's almost 17 years since my accident, and I've got softened to that stance. But I've realized how many of us are paralyzed by fear, or we're stuck in life in a comfort zone, and we think like, man, we're this bit. You think about it as a someone said this the other day to me. Think about it as a ship, and ships are built to be out at sea. Ships are built to be on the water, and a lot of the safest place for a ship to be is in the harbor. And a lot of us think, man, we're out at sea, and really we're in the harbor because it's comfortable, and we're in the harbor because it's safe, and we don't have to take any chances. But it's like, man, we're purposed to do something with our life, and like it's so important to like take a step. I say it a lot, like take a step. It's not a leap of faith. It's not like this, a lot of people I think a lot of people know what they're purposed to do, but they're too scared to do it because it's like, well, it's safe to do the 9 to 5. It's safe to just stay in my lane. And man, like, and then there's regret later in life. I don't know. Like, words are interesting, like you said, and that whole paralyzed thing. And I think a lot of us end up being paralyzed at some point in our life because of fear of failure, or whatever it would be.
Yeah, but it's interesting you say about like how you felt when people use the word paralyzed, because I today feel that way about the word depression and people saying that they're depressed. And I had a very mild case compared to the people that I've had on the show and that I've talked to throughout all the kind of mental health championing that I'm doing. But I still don't like people using the word depressed if they're not really. And who am I to say, look, maybe you are depressed, maybe you're not. But maybe think about, am I depressed, or am I just sad? Am I just having a moment? So maybe, if you're okay with the paralyzed thing, I should probably get over people using depressed, but use it as an opportunity to ask, hey, are you depressed? Right? Yeah. Are you depressed, or are you just sad or having a moment? And any of them is fine, and all of them need attention. So that's just something, I guess, for me to think about moving forward. So how long did it take you to the rehab process, from the hospital to I'm out and now I got to figure out what am I going to do with my life?
Took at least, and it was a whole process, but it takes at least, for me, it took about 2 years to really understand it. And there was a couple things in there. Number one, I had a great support network. My girlfriend at the time is my wife now. I mean, at 19 years old, staying with me through that entire period in some ugly, ugly valleys that like I was just mad and sad and angry and resentful and bitter and like and to have someone in your life that can really speak into it and really lift you up when you need it and pull you back when you need it, kind of that human guardrail, where it's so special. And I realize as I get older and older, like it's so special to have that in your life. And then other people around me as well in my inner circle that really, really spoke into it. And not only were they there to say, hey, it's going to be okay, and pat me on the head, like not that kind of thing, like have honest conversations like, Joe, you're gaining too much weight, man. You're eating your feelings, and let's do something about it. Having those hard conversations and those built-in relationships where you're able to speak truth into each other's lives, keep each other accountable in a real way. Like you can't have accountability without vulnerability. Those two are married together. And that was really important. And then also when I ended up finding wheelchair rugby because of some discussions, because of my weight, I had gotten close to 300 pounds, about 285 pounds a couple years after my accident. And my buddy said, dude, you got to start lifting. You got to start doing something. And so I that's when I started looking at sports and found wheelchair rugby. And it wasn't like because I could be a Paralympian or be an elite athlete. I didn't look at that like that. I found a group of people that had went through similar things as me. And at 19, I wanted nothing to do, 20 years old, 21 years old, 22 years old, nothing to do with a support group where you sit in a circle and talk about your feelings. But I got it in wheelchair rugby, where I was in a locker room again and we could talk about real things. And I saw visibly, and none of these guys that I played with on this club team were good athletes. Really, they weren't. I mean, it just is what it is. They're a group of club athletes, but they showed up in normal looking cars and got in and out of their cars by themselves and transferred in the rugby chairs by themselves. And I saw independence. I saw life. I saw them living, not just waiting for something to happen, which I had done for about 2 years, going like, am I going to walk again or what should I do? And so that was a really big turning point for me, a really big pivot. And one of the best days of my life is going to that practice, finding out I could be an athlete again and kind of seeing some guys living life in a chair. And that was kind of the first step towards my journey as a Paralympian.
Yeah, it's and being a Paralympian is, I mean, it's the 1%. Like you can be a great athlete and you can be great at whatever you're doing, regular or Paralympics or Special Olympics. It's to actually make that, because you don't realize how many people there are out there who are doing it. Right. And you have, I mean, I don't know how many people are on the team, 8?
16 on the training squad, and then 12 that are on the team going to Tokyo. Yeah.
Yeah. So how did you know, how long did it take for you to know that you were going to be great at this?
I've always had like a determination and I love goal setting, and it kind of helped me set some goals up. And I remember watching the Beijing Paralympics. I had played for about 2 years at that point with rugby and thought I was like, man, I'm okay. I'm all right. You know, I'm losing a little bit of weight. We won a Division II championship, which was like basically, you know, like the not in tournament championship, basically is what it was in rugby. And I watched the Beijing Paralympics and watched the boys over there in 2008 win in China, and remember watching them. And that was the first time I'm like, I want to do this. And then from there, you know, and a lot of us have dreams. And you talked about words, and I love that. A lot of us has dreams, but a lot of us are too scared to vocalize them, just too scared to speak them out and talk to people about them. And I told my wife, April, I told some friends, I said, I want to do this. This is what I want to do. And from there, it was instant accountability. And then from there, it was, how do we do this? Got to set up some goals. Got to lose some weight. I can't push around 300 pounds and be good at the sport. There's no way. In context, when we play a full game of wheelchair rugby, you're pushing about 5 to 6 miles, start, stop. Like it's a lot of cardiovascular. It's a lot of strength endurance, and your chair weighs about 40 pounds. And so it's strength endurance as well. And so I had to get better at the sport, but then I also took steps to get after it and attack it. Number one was getting in front of the national team coach. All right, where's James Gumbert live in Austin? Oh, they got a summer blast there where they're just doing pickup stuff. I flew there, got in front of the coach. The other piece that I did, oh, there we go. That's awesome. That's amazing.
I can't see who that is.
Yeah.
Because it's not, but that's great to hear.
Yeah. But yeah, and then the other thing was April and I moved from Minneapolis, Minnesota to Phoenix, Arizona. Some guys asked if I wanted to play on the team with them, and there was 3 other Paralympians. So I wanted to be around greatness. I wanted to be around people that were good at the sport, that were elite at the sport. And I was like, at that point, I didn't even have like I should have been holding their water bottles. Like I was not good at the sport at all, but I saw the value in it. And I said, April, let's attack this. Let's do it. And she was like, yeah, I'm all in. So we moved across country And a lot of people want to say they want to do something. They want goals. They have dreams, and then they get stuck there. They get stuck on the second W. First W's words, second W's work. And it's easy when you think about it and say it, but a lot of people don't want to put the work in. Like, I want to be better. Well, okay, where are your actions? Are you aligning with your goals? Are your behaviors matching up with your goals? And for a lot of us, sometimes it's no. Yeah.
I've never been more motivated than I am now. And I couldn't have done what I'm doing now probably 5 years ago. So,
Yeah.
Timing is everything too. If this would have happened
Yes.
to you 10 years later, how would that have changed? I don't know. You're a different person. You've experienced more in life. So, it's interesting how that always works out.
Yeah.
As well. But so what? I think you were after Murder Ball, right?
I was after Murder Ball. And I didn't see the sport until I started playing. I had no idea what it was. And then the guys, of course, when I came to practice in 2006, were like, hey, yeah, check out this. At that point, it was a year out and it's, up for an Oscar. And that movie, 15, 16 years later now. And some of those guys are Mark and Zupan. Scott Hogstad's my mentor in the sport. And we're in the movie. And those guys, I mean, they really changed some perceptions and some stereotypes with disability, with talking about things that people don't want to talk about with disabilities, sex, the hard things that you have to go through. Like, in that movie, they showed the guy at the hospital going through that first stage, because a lot of people see that first stage and go like, this guy's going to be a vegetable. He's not going to be able to do anything. And then you see the determination and go, oh, they can be elite. They can have girlfriends. They can have jobs. They can have wives. They can have kids. They can, like, the whole thing. And it really opened people's eyes that these guys, have a disability and there's some things going on, but at the same time, they're athletes. They're athletes first, disabled second. Where a lot of times before that movie, you see the disability first, and you see the less than, or not enough, or unworthy or not valuable type of thing first, and then go, oh, that's a cute little sport they play. But it's like, dude, wheelchair rugby, we're smashing into each other as hard as we can.
Yeah.
When I first saw it, Matt, I was like, here's what went through my head. There's crippled people out there in chairs smashing into each other, making each other more crippled. Like, the whole thing is pretty wild when you see it at first. So this is the best thing ever. It's a complete oxymoron, and what a way to smash stereotypes.
Yeah, it's like the bumper cars at the fair. Like, we're well protected there. It's fun to do for about 3 minutes, and then you're like, all right. That's the what are your limits? I don't know fully about what are your limitations. Like, what are the three things that you can't do now that, if you could just add those three, you'd be, it's the stuff you miss or stuff that would be real helpful for you. I'm sure there's 100 of them, but
man, you got great questions between your superpowers and this question, because we always talk about this. The Paralympics, there's like a disability food chain. Like, you have people that are like, if we see in my situation, I'm a C6 and 7 quadriplegic, which means that I'm paralyzed from about the chest down. I have full function of my arms, but my hands don't open. Like, for those of you that are watching, like, I can open my hand, I can't close it. Same thing over here. Like, it's just kind of, my fingers are bent naturally now, but I can open it, but I can't close it. So I can't make a fist. And I figured out how to tie my shoes and pull my pants up and do the whole thing. Like, and it doesn't really bother me. I taught myself how to play guitar when I was like 16, and I missed that. I miss being able to play the guitar, but at the same, like, I don't focus so much on what I can't do. Like, I have boys that are 9 and 7 now, and my daughter's 5, and I love playing sports with them. And it really, like, frustrated me that I couldn't throw the ball that far. Like, I can't take the football and throw it 50 yards like I could before, but you adapt, or you know what, like, now they have this thing that looks like a racket, like a pickleball racket, that I have a handcuff that I just cuff my hand to the thing, and I can throw a ball up and hit the baseball, out into the infield, out into the outfield, and help my kids. And so it's all about, like, being willing to adapt, being willing to, I would say you need to pause before you pivot. Pause. All right, what's going on? Okay, how do we pivot? And really recalibrate, pause, own the situation, and then pivot. Because a lot of times when we pivot first, we don't end up processing what we're doing, processing what our feelings are before we pivot. Because if we just pivot, then we don't actually process some of that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like from the injuries, there wasn't much of an option. You knew right away that you weren't going to walk again, correct?
So the doctors told me I had a 3% chance to walk again. And I took that for a year and a half. And I'm like, 3%, I'll take it. Like, let's try to figure it out. We got braces that locked my knees in place and walked with the walker. But nothing came back physically. And the doctor said, hey, for 2 years, you might get something back. Like 2 years, usually the plateau for nerve growth. And at that point, then it's probably time to move on. And that's basically what we did. And it worked my butt off, outpatient, occupational and physical therapy, and worked my butt off trying to do it, and had some friends and family that were there with me and believed in it. But it didn't happen. And so it's that point where I didn't want to sulk on like, oh, well, I can't walk, and so life sucks. It's like, how can I be the best version of myself in a wheelchair? And I realized, and it took me a while, but I realized that chair laying by me in the hospital bed and laying by me when I got home was my opportunity. It wasn't my obstacle. Like getting in that chair led me to going back to school, led me to going back to my master's, led me to being a Paralympian, led me to being a husband to April and a father to my 3 kids. Like getting in that chair has provided me with an amazing life. Sometimes it sucks. Like we're talking about real stuff. It's not all butterflies and rainbows. And I do have a disability, and at times like it gets in the way because we live in a very inaccessible world still. But at the same time, I see it as my opportunity. I see it as the vehicle that I've had to kind of drive forward and take steps forward to success.
Well, let's talk about the inaccessibility. Why? Is it money? Is it people don't care? What's stopping from having that type of access?
Yeah, I think I mean, we've came leaps and bounds. The ADA has been around since the American with Disabilities Act's been around since 1990, I believe. So it's been about 31 years now. But in some ways, I think the ADA has left us a little bit too comfortable because there's laws in place and there's minimums in place when you're building a public place or you're building out ramps, and there's but at the same time,
holding these people accountable. Right.
At the same time, like you can slap down this ramp and be like, well, that's code, and nobody in a wheelchair can really get up it because it's not the rise to run ratio just sucks. And so like the rise to run ratio by law is 1 to 8, 1 inch of rise per 8 inches of run. But the accessibility ratio for people that pretty much everyone can access would be 1 inch per 12 inches of run. And so that's a big difference. That you're talking a different 4 inches. So like it's getting people to understand, and a lot of it is ignorance, and not like a harsh way, and not like oh, you're ignorant and stupid and you suck, but it's more of ignorance and not knowing. Like before my accident, I didn't know. I didn't really think about it. But if we think about accessibility for the disabled person, we're like, well, it doesn't affect me. But if we think about accessibility in universal mindset and going like accessibility for the disabled person is accessibility for everyone. Because if you think about it, the wheelchair user can use the ramp. The person with a broken leg can use the ramp. The mom carrying 15 bags with her 3 kids in a stroller struggling up, like she can use the ramp. The elderly person, our senior citizens, can use it when they're using their walkers. And so there's a lot of different people that can use that ramp. And I've never met a person that said, you know what, I'd rather have steps because that's way easier to walk up. Like that's not a thing, right? And so just thinking out of it from a universal standpoint is really important. But at the same time, a lot of people with disabilities in our community of disabled people don't have a voice, or maybe feel too scared to have a voice. And so for what little platform I have, I want to make sure that I'm speaking out to a group that's marginalized. I mean, it just is. And we've got to come together and have a voice and stand up for our rights. And before the Americans with Disability Act in the 70s, people with disabilities were getting out of their wheelchairs and climbing up the Capitol steps, like basically just crawling up, and that's what it came to. And now we're kind of like, we're a little bit too comfortable and living in kind of an entitled environment instead of going out and attacking what we want and what we need.
And there's so much so many causes and so much that needs to get done. So sometimes it just gets lower on the list.
Yeah.
People bring it higher, and visibility. People like Christopher Reeves, Eric LeGrand. Those are the who else is at the forefront that can help?
Gosh, there's so many of them.
People that people know that
know. I mean, Christopher Reeves, Eric LeGrand's a big one. There's a couple other NFL players that have broken their necks throughout the years that are huge. Who else? I mean, there's let's see. McFadden is Tatiana McFadden is a woman that's one of the best wheelchair racers in the world ever. She's won like all 4 major marathons 4 times or something like that. It's insane. And so she's on the forefront for sure. And so many past Paralympians, and really seeing the USOPC, the United States Olympic and Paralympic Committee, come together as one has really helped as well. So Olympians and Paralympians coming together and not seeing like this, it's either Olympians or Paralympians or it's before it was just United States Olympic Committee, and going, you know what, like, we don't even recognize Paralympians, and now they are. And so I think that's really helping as well. So
being in the same place at the same time, right? And not have, I mean, the Special Olympics is a separate thing.
Yeah.
But still, I don't know. They're all incredible.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to be like, do we want to celebrate on our own, or do we want to feel like we're part of one bigger team? So you've been to one, right?
Yeah.
This will be your second.
Yep.
What was the best part of the first Olympics experience?
I mean, the best part was probably, I'm a family dude, so like seeing my wife and our first child, Braxton, was 6 months old at the time. So seeing them in the stands, and you're playing in the same arena that LeBron James and Kobe Bryant, but Kevin Durant, like the same stadium after they had won gold there. And so like that was really neat. Our first game was against Great Britain, so the fans in the stands it's all packed. They're all talking trash in their British accent, which was great. And that whole thing was really, really neat, because you felt special. You felt like an elite athlete, and which I hadn't felt like I hadn't experienced before. I'd been to a World Championships in 2010 previous to that, and we won gold. But there was 5,000 people compared to 15,000, and the whole thing was just was amazing. But honestly, I don't know if you're gonna bring this up at all, but I will. So like, probably my favorite part of this entire journey now wasn't my favorite part of the time, but we talked, about those valleys before, and I got left off the 2016 squad for Rio. Got cut about a month before everyone left. And at the time it was devastating, but really, like, I really truly believe that we learn more from when we fail than we do when we win or are successful. And that moment really changed my outlook on who I was, what my identity was in. And because in 2016, we had kind of, in context, in 2012, we played Canada in the semifinals. And I mean, like USA Canada and anything is a rivalry. And it is big time in wheelchair rugby. And we were favored to win. We're ranked number 1 since 2005 all the way to 2012. Lost maybe 3 games, but won everything basically. 2006 World Championships, 08 Paralympics, 2010 World Championships, and then 2012 favored. We lose by 1. We were down by 9 in the first quarter. Absolutely crapped our pants in the first quarter. Fought all the way back, and our scores go by 1. Like, there's no 3-pointers or 6-pointers. Like, we were getting our butts whooped. Like, it's a blowout. Fought all the way back. We're tied. Like, you can hear like the Mighty Ducks theme music playing. Like, this bad boy is going to be made into a Hollywood movie. Tie the game. Ended up turning the ball over, losing by 1, and lose the Canadians to go to the gold medal game. So like, it was devastating. And the next 4 years, we had focused on gold, focused on the outcome instead of the journey, focused on this trinket instead of focusing on what really matters. And then I get cut. And I've been a leader of the team for 3 years, and some stuff went down, and I'm getting cut, and didn't see it coming, and it completely devastated me. But what I learned from that, some mentors that I had, learned like my value and my worth aren't just rooted in whether I'm named to a Paralympic team or not. My value and my identity and my worthiness and who I am as a father and husband and who I am as a speaker aren't tied to whether or not I win or lose a game. Because a lot of times in sports, we look at the scoreboard and let that determine if we're successful or we're a failure. And it couldn't be further from the truth, because I really believe that there's winning and there's learning. When you lose, you learn, because we're kind of built to do that. Like if you win by one, oh man, we're the best team ever. Like when you lose by one, you're looking at the film, you're like, coach needs to get fired, the players need to get cut,
Man,
the whole thing, right? And so yeah, so it's that moment really in those years after that, and when I got called as you know, one of the captains of the team, and being on Tokyo, like, it was amazing, it was awesome, it was redemptive. I felt great about it, but I also felt a peace before I was even named that, like, whether or not I get called to this team and named to this team, or whether or not I'm a leader, or a captain, or I have a title, or whatever it is, I know where my value, my worth are. Like, my kids are more important to me whether or not I win or lose a game. My wife's more important to me whether or not I win or lose a game. My faith's more important to me whether or not I win or lose a game. With that being said, I mean, we're going to Tokyo winning gold. Like, we don't want to lose, obviously, but I'm competitive as ever. But yeah, I think it's important, because a lot of people will tie that identity or their value or worth to an outcome.
So, a couple questions. Was it fair that you got cut? Were you good enough that you should have been on there?
Tough question, dude. Tough question. In my eyes, I should have been on. But I'm at a point in my career where, like, you know, maybe I'll write it in a book someday or something like that. But that I'm working on a book right now called Permanent Victory, and talking about the lessons you learn in failure, and so hopefully I'll have that in a chapter. But yeah, I think I felt like I should have been on that team. It was probably a little bit unfair, but at the same time, and I think here's the deal. I think it's a really good lesson. Like, even when you have a bullet to shoot at someone and play that blame game, and say, you know what, it's their fault. You know what, like, I'm going to blame them. You still can't move on from it until you look in the mirror and say, what can I do better?
Right. So how'd you get good enough to get picked
again?
Yeah.
Believed in myself, man. Like that, I could say, you know what, my coaches didn't believe in me and they didn't want to pick me, so they don't like me, or whatever it is. Or I could, you know, when I came back in 2017, I was like, well, I'm just going to continue to train, continue to play my game, and make sure that I'm a good leader. I think I learned more about leadership there. I wasn't a bad leader before Rio, but I thought, like, that outcome would determine it, whether or not I'm a good leader. I'm a good captain because we won gold, instead of, like, you know what, I need to be a servant leader. I need to pour into people's lives. I need to make sure I know them so I can lead them. Everyone's built differently, and figuring out how they tick and lead them through that. And that's something that I learned and did a lot better the next go around. And then also just trained my butt off, and was like, well, you know, like, here's the deal. I'm going to come back just as good as before, stronger, faster, hopefully. And a cerebral game. Like, I'm 36 now. I'm probably not as strong or fast as I was at 26 in the rugby chair, but you know, you get that OG game though, where you can kind of, like, move the pieces around. You know, the chess game a little bit better as well, so that kind of helps. But yeah, it was a belief in myself. It was a journey of not needing affirmation from someone else to tell me if I'm good enough.
But you're better now. I mean, you've gotten better. You've clearly increased the talent level of your game to get there.
Yeah, I think so. I'm a lot mentally stronger with the game. But I mean, in 2014, I was named to one of the all tournament team for World Championships. Paralympics don't have all tournament teams, but then in 2018, so 2 years after I was cut, was named it again. So I must be doing something right. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. So it's one of those things, looking back, where I used to have a lot of bitterness and resentment towards, but it really helped me kind of, like, realign some unhealthy things that, you know, I was attaching my identity to.
You're going to your second Olympics, so not a rookie. What are you looking forward to maybe doing differently, and what are you looking forward to, because it was such a great experience the first time?
Yeah, this time around for the Paralympics, it's going to be so much different because of the COVID protocols. No foreign spectators are allowed, so my family can't go. It's going to be Japanese only fans in the stands, and
Are
there's
they
a
going to
lot
be in Tokyo or not at all?
in Tokyo. Yeah, we'll be in
No, but I
Tokyo.
mean, they're not going to. Is your
Oh
family?
no, they're not going. They're not going. We talked about like, but it's so hard to get in the country right now.
Yeah.
A lot of different protocols that it just makes sense to just kind of do a watch party at home, and which sucks. Like the whole that really sucks. But I think this time around, it's and I've been to the London Paralympics, and then we also have Pan American Games, which are like a mini Olympics or Paralympics for North, Central, and South America. I've been to two of those in Toronto and then in Lima, and like I know what to expect. I know what to expect with like the food, and I know what to expect with the downtime, and like this time around, it's gonna be probably more downtime because you can't go to anyone else's events. Like you can't go and watch volleyball, you can't go and watch track and field because of the COVID protocol. So yeah, like I think I'm ready to lead our team. I'm ready to help guys that haven't been there understand. We got a couple of rookies on the team, but for the most part, we're a team that we have two rookies, first Paralympics, a couple of us that probably 4 or 5 of us that are the second, and then we've got 3 or 4 that are their third Paralympics. I mean, we've got a pretty veteran group here that's ready to go and take gold.
So, did you think it was not going to happen, the Olympics?
Man, yeah, for a while there. I mean, when it first got postponed, I was like, this thing's gonna get canceled. There's no way. And then it gets postponed, which sucked. But then it was like, okay, we're at least it's gonna happen. And then now I feel like it's people are trying to sell stories in the news, and it's gonna get canceled. And it's happening. I mean, from all the information we get at the USOPC, it's happening from the Tokyo government, the organizing committee. The whole thing's happening. So I think it's good to see that. It's exciting. And we train like it's going to happen. I don't think you can just be like, well, maybe it won't happen. I don't think that's going to be good for training your mindset.
No. Let's look into the future. What's the future for Joe as a player? Is this the last one you try for? Do you still go for another one? Does it depend if you win? I mean, what's the mindset? Obviously, you're focused on this. I get it, but you got to think about the future as an athlete. Everyone does that.
Yeah. I'm take the easy way out. I'm not sure, but I think some stuff that's happened in this last year when a lot of things got taken away, and you realized how precious, like you said, time before. Realized how precious time is, and had a close buddy of mine pass away recently. He was a 2-time Paralympian gold medalist, my age, Nick Springer, amazing dude. He contracted meningitis at 14 years old, lost his legs above the knee and his arms below the elbow. And he was a beast, man. He was so good at the sport and such a light. And then to lose him at 35 years old makes you realize how short life is. And so, like, I don't want to not continue just to not continue, but I'm also building my speaking platform, and I realized that my purpose isn't just in playing this made up wheelchair sport we crash into each other. My purpose is in speaking and sharing my message. It's something that I just really believe God's put in my heart, and that I love doing. I find so much joy in it, and love to share my story, in hopes that people will be inspired, not just by my story, but by be inspired to look in the mirror and take personal responsibility for their obstacles and circumstances and valleys they have, and choose to find victory in it.
Yeah. Where have you spoken, and where do you want to speak?
Yeah. I want to be able to speak anywhere and everywhere I can. I obviously, as a speaker, I want to be on big stages, but at the same time, I find value in small stages. I've been able to speak for Challenge Athletes Foundation, Organic Valley, Red Bull, the Red Bull New York Soccer Club, a number of different organizations, a lot of different schools in Wisconsin, Minnesota, and across the country there. And so there's been, I've had some good names, but then I also know like I'm still learning and growing as a speaker. And I want to, and I kind of attack it like an athlete. I want to get better. I want to find people to put myself around that are good speakers that I can look at and gain a lot of knowledge from. And so, yeah, like that's the whole deal for me. And I mean, you can reach out at Joe Delagrave 14 on Instagram or LinkedIn or have a website if you want to find more about my speaking. But yeah, I'm just taking that step and continue to take another step and another step. And if I take 2 steps backwards, who cares? I'm going to take another step forward. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm a terrible public speaker. I try and get on more panels and have more discussions like this because I think it's easier. I'm not, not scripted. I'm amazed at the people who can memorize songs, the singers and movies.
Yeah.
And even speeches like to do a TEDx talk. They don't have a prompter, do they?
TEDx, I don't think that TEDx is, and I haven't done one yet, and I really want to do one. But that is 15 minutes of insanity because in 45 minutes keynotes, I feel comfortable, and you can kind of tell stories and the whole thing. 15 minutes is like such a packed. I don't know. It's crazy.
Oh, it's tough because you and I could sit here and talk for 3 hours.
Yeah, totally.
It wouldn't even bother me. We could figure out a million things to talk about, but to not have someone to bounce stuff off and to kind of, have that conversation with. I've had people cancel on the Wolff Den and they track my episodes. I do. So for me to not do one would throw off everything. So if someone cancels, I just get on and talk. And if you go back and look at the ones where I've just talked, it's like 3 minutes. I can't talk for more than 3 or 4 minutes because then you're not, your thoughts.
Yeah.
There's a million things I could talk about. I could talk about the sports and what happened on the weekend. But it's just hard to do without practicing. So kind of like a book is good to tell your story, but you don't have to tell it in 15 minutes or an hour and you're just talking with no interaction and feedback.
Yeah. No, totally.
The wheelchair has evolved crazily. What's the biggest advantages now that you have on a wheelchair? Obviously power as opposed to not, but you can't use power in the Olympics, right?
Yeah, we can't use power in the Paralympics. We can't our chairs are built specific. Our specific wheelchair rugby chairs are built specific to our bodies. I'm sponsored by a company called Vesco Metalcraft out in California that have been building these. The guys that started it one's a quadriplegic, and then the other guy used to work on racing cars, and so really streamlined, and the whole thing came a long way where they use heat treated aluminum. Some companies use titanium, which is even lighter and stronger, but then if it breaks, which our chairs break after about 2-3 years, you're going to find cracks and stuff like that because of just the impact. But it's pretty awesome how far they've came, and the technology with it, where heat treated aluminum or using different chair setups. And so it's kind of like, you look at, the racing industry, and everyone's trying to innovate. Everyone's trying to gain an edge by the equipment they use. And it's a big part of it, and it's an expensive part of it, unfortunately, but it's,
is there insurance? They're not going to insure you because they know you're ramming the crap out of it, like the Seinfeld. Better give me the insurance because I'm going to ram the hell out of it.
I mean, you're looking at about 10 grand for an entire chair setup with your wheels and everything like that. And then we travel with at least 2 spare wheels, extra parts, that whole thing. We have equipment managers that will, if we call an equipment timeout, they've got a minute to come out and fix our stuff. And it's usually pop a wheel on, pop a wheel off type of thing, or fix a binder strap. We're strapped into our chairs, so we're one with the chair and that whole thing. So they've came a long way. It's pretty impressive.
Do you use a motor wheelchair in your non-rugby? I would think you don't, because you have to, you're always, that's what the thing is. Will you use it when you stop playing?
No, probably not. I don't think hopefully I won't use it until, I'm a grandpa, make it that long. But it's really important. And some mentors of mine that are a little bit older now, getting close towards 50, but they've just continue to move your body. As a spinal cord injury, we just got to continue to move our body because we're so sedentary already organically, because, we're not moving our legs and stuff. So continuing to stay fit and nutrition and that whole thing is really important for longevity and lifespan. And so for me, I don't as long as I can continue to push around and be active, I want to do that so I can live a long and full life.
Yeah, my friend Corey, who usually is on, I don't know if he's listening here. He's in a wheelchair. He's got the lights, bubbles, speakers. It's like it's an incredible thing. He's a big concert guy, so it's fun to
Okay.
see all that.
That's awesome.
Everyone loves. You can see. I was at a concert down here across from the arena, and could see his bubbles and his lights flashing all the way on the other side. So it was.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Cool.
Yeah.
Do you live in a one-story home?
I do. I have a basement, and so and don't have an elevator, but I have like a chairlift. So okay. I just ride that bad boy down like a just big giant tea bag riding down all the way. It's super slow. And my wife,
that thing where they go down on the I believe, because we've looked at houses and one of them had an elevator. And I'm like, this thing would be awesome.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It was an ugly looking one. I'm sure they have nicer looking ones.
Yeah, if I ever build a home, definitely an elevator put in there. I mean, it's for my wheelchair, but then I mean, if you're in the basement, you can ask your wife to just drop the dinner down the elevator, and boom, you got a dumbwaiter.
Like one of those things with the I don't know. There's a lot of contraptions. You get creative when you can't do things, right? I mean, really have to get creative about these things.
Yeah, no, totally, absolutely.
I hate to ask this question because I probably know what the answer is going to be, but do you ever think about what you would have done and what your life would have been if the accident didn't happen?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I think it's kind of fun to like, you know, if you could do it all over again, what would you do in college, or what would you do there? Like, if I didn't have the wheelchair, didn't have the accident, where would life be? Would I be with April? Would I have kids? Would I have like, what would I be doing? And yeah, you think about like, you know, the alternate universe that like what Joe would be doing. But
I think about that. I think about, hey, what if I was this, or what if I was that? Some of it's fantasy, like, hey, what if I was the best basketball player in the world, or something. Like, hey, what if I just went here instead of there? Because the choices we make can really blow up a plan or change the dynamics of your life. Simple choices.
It's super fun to think about. I think what gives me peace, though, and I'll share this with you, but you know, like when you're in an airplane, I mean, sure, you fly a lot and fly, whatever, and you're up in an airplane, you can kind of see how the highways and the riverways, kind of where they're going. And when you're on them or you're down, like obviously you have GPS now, you have your phone, whatever, but if you're in the middle of nowhere, you don't know exactly where you're going. You don't have a phone, you don't have a GPS, you know, work with me here. You don't really know where you're going, or you don't know where that road might hook up to. And that's life sometimes. But then sometimes you do get like a glimpse of where you've been, and it helps you go, you know what, I'm on the right path. Because at 13 years old, I thought I was going to be a speaker. For some reason, like I was at a youth conference and I saw this dude that looked really cool. It was back in the 90s when the Astros were like the coolest thing ever. So the speaker had an Astros jersey on, and that's kind of like, you know, my middle school self was like, man, this dude is awesome. Like, he was kind of funny, whatever. I don't even remember his name. I'm like, I want to do this someday. And that was a theme. It was a theme of threes in my life that I've kind of like gravitated towards and realized like I've got a plan, and God's got a purpose for my life. It was 13. That was my first three. In 19, I broke my neck, and a week before my accident, I had a Don Beebe House of Speed shirt. Remember Don Beebe?
Yeah.
The white receiver, running around doing his thing, and he won the Super Bowl with the Packers. So like he had camps there, speed camps, and in college, all the wide receiver coach, like everyone would make fun of me because I was a little slow. I think they were kind of grooming me to be a tackle, basically, like big old athletic tackle. And the wide receiver coach would really be like, "Hey Joe, like, dude, you like." He'd yell at his receivers and be like, why is Joe always getting open? You guys suck at running routes. He's great at running routes. He's the slowest guy on our team. And I'm like, bro, can you give me a better compliment than that? But anyways, our kicker ended up giving me this shirt. It had a Bible verse on it. It was Proverbs 3. It says, trust the Lord with all your heart, lean not on your understanding, in all your ways acknowledge him, and he'll direct your paths. And on July 3rd, it was the second three. This verse, Proverbs 3, came in. And I remember, and I told you, I was so mad at God. I was so mad at that verse. I didn't want to believe any of it. It all sucked. I was like, no, I want to understand it. And at the point, and now I kind of realized, like, I would have never understood where my life was going. because at 19, I'm laying in the hospital bed with a 3% chance to walk again, another 3. And I'm going like, just wiggle a toe, a leg. I want to sign something, and didn't really realize that wheelchair and that verse were my sign that everything was going to be okay. I wanted kids. I wanted a wife. I've got 3 kids. I wanted to play a sport. I thought my sport career was over. I'm at my 2nd Paralympics, but this is my 3rd training cycle, with the honor of wearing 3 letters across my chest. I thought my athletic career was in college, playing a sport that was in Division II, driving a bus around the Midwest. And I've been able to fly around the world wearing USA, 3 letters across my chest. That has been really, really amazing. And I think for me, it's shown me that, this 30,000 foot view, that there's a plan and a purpose. And my purpose isn't the Paralympics or isn't sport or anything like that. It's being a husband and a father to my wife and my kids, and then also just talking to anyone that will listen. I'm a seed planter. I'm a plant seeds, whatever it is, and sometimes I don't know how I'm affecting it. Like, you put that LinkedIn user, like, I don't know that guy or girl or whoever, maybe if I affected their life, great. But I'm stepping into what I'm called and purpose to do, and hopefully it makes a difference.
I mean, if we can change
just one
person's
just one,
everything we do, it's going to add up. You do so many things in life, you don't even realize it. Like, I'm going to do this show, and then I'm going to send an email out, happy Memorial Day. And yesterday I sent a Twitter message to someone who's been struggling, say, hey, how's everything going? You just never know. And we've gotten so much help along our way because, I mean, it sounds like you have the same thing. Like, the circle that I have is unbelievable. Like, this type of circle that it's not superficial. It's like, hey, I'll tell you you're getting fat, like, just like you said, and because they care about you, and it's okay when you're have that kind of support. You can really say anything you want to them, and let's have a discussion about it. Ben Rector, 30,000 Feet, great song. You should listen to it. It's kind of about your airplane, and
I'll check it out.
Perspective. It's one of my favorite songs. Do you follow Tim Tebow at all? He's a man of faith. He's absolutely. He's inspiring. I'm not on the same beliefs as he is, but I just feel, I don't know, there's something about him that just feels real. It's hard. Hard time. There's a lot of people who are of faith who are not real, right? I mean,
no, exactly.
On TV, and and people follow them.
It's at the end of the day, I hope that I can be kind to people and to love people like that. And no matter where you're at with faith or with what, like, I think we can all do that as humans, is be kind to people and love people. Yeah, we can have disagreements, good conversations, but rooted in like, hopefully I'm listening. When I'm listening to people, I'm listening to understand, not listening just to respond. And a lot of times we listen to, like, give our opinion, to respond, or to argue, or to debate, and it drives a bigger wedge. And I'm not here to judge people. I'm here to love people, and hopefully I do that in an authentic and real way, and that's the goal.
I do both, but I'm trying to do better. Give me your Mount Rushmore of athletes. Who are your favorite athletes? Give me your favorite athlete.
I mean, I'm an OG guy on, and he probably wasn't the nicest person after that you watched The Last Dance, but Michael Jordan is, like, on there for sure for me. I have a lot of teammates that are Team LeBron, and I think you can do both. But anyway, he's 100% on there. I'm a huge Cubs fan, so I would probably put Ernie Banks on there.
Oh yeah, that's good, right?
Yeah, I'm a huge Cubs fan. Who else? I mean, I loved growing up watching Brett Favre play. I like anyone that plays games like a kid. And Brett Favre is one of those guys. Javi Baez is one of those guys. Like, when you're 30 yards down the field and you're doing a fake to someone and someone falls for it, like, it's just great watching him growing up. But
it's like Tony Romo in the announcing. He's just like a kid, like
so good, right?
The game. Like, it's just like you and me calling the game would be saying the same stuff that he's saying. It's great.
He's so good at it. So good at it.
Is Aaron Rodgers going to be back?
I would say I honestly, I don't think so. a lot of Packer fans are like pissed off about it. Almost like the front office has not given him a thing in the last 7 years as far as skill players in the draft. Like their draft has been since 2014, their highest round they've taken a skill player is a third round. That was this year. That's crazy. Yeah.
It's I don't know where's he going to go though. He's not going to retire. He's got to play.
There's no way he's going to retire, and then that's the thing. Like everyone's talking about Denver, and it's like their shelf's empty. Like
Denver's not a quarterback away. He's got to go from a quarterback away. It'll be interesting to see. I don't mind the Packers. I had a great time at Lambeau, man. That's a bucket list. Do you have a bucket list? I usually ask do you have a bucket list for an event or traveling somewhere? I mean, you've obviously been to a lot of places.
Yeah. It'd be pretty sweet to a couple of my teammates have done this when we've been over in Europe and went to like some of the Premier League games.
Yeah.
And so that would be really neat. I actually haven't ever been to Lambeau. Been to Wrigley plenty of times, been to Fenway. So Lambeau's definitely on the list for sure. But I think so. Like my bucket list probably already happened. Being at Wrigley Field with my dad before he passed away, and he was in and out of my life. It's a whole nother story, but we ended up reconciling. I didn't see him from when I was 5 to 20, but we ended up going to Wrigley Field, and he was a huge Cubs fan. Grew up in Chicago, huge Bears fan, the whole thing. And that day was we went a couple times, but that first day was so special, man. And like to be with your dad in the stands watching, your favorite team, that's cool.
You
and so
have the ticket from that day.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And hopefully I can make memories like that with my boys, and that's what it's all about.
I hope so. We'll get you out of here with the same question we get everyone out of here with. You can meet one person. They have to be living. You can't be related to them. Who you're going to pick and what are you guys going to do? We're going to put it in a list. I'm already working towards making it happen for some of my guests.
I can meet one person and I'm not related to them.
You can't be related to them and they have to be alive.
Okay.
It could be anyone, sports, music, movies, public figure, entrepreneur, philanthropist. And had some good answers.
I think I would go with the sports thing. Let's take on the sports theme. And I would love to meet Jackie Robinson when he's going through the whole thing. I'm a mixed dude. My mom's white. My dad was black, and my grandfather, who's probably my biggest hero, he was one of the first 13 black commissioned officers in the U.S. Navy during World War II. And so anytime I see Jackie Robinson, that whole thing and the whole story, like it'd be interesting to get his perspective.
Yeah, I've told my grandma had a Jackie Robinson story. I'll tell you offline, but that's not part of the rules because Jackie is no longer with us. So you have to pick someone living.
Oh, it's someone. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I'm trying to make it happen for our guests. So someone
living. Someone living.
I can't make that happen.
You cannot make that happen. That is true. Someone living. I'm sorry. Let's see. Man, Barack Obama.
Yeah.
Okay.
If I had to, he's on my list.
Yeah.
And would you shoot some hoops with him? What are you going to do?
One of my teammates got to shoot hoops with him at the White House.
Really? Awesome.
Yeah, which is amazing. That would be really cool. That'd be really cool. I think, shooting hoops with a good conversation. Yeah.
Is there anything cooler? I mean, I know people hate Obama. And I'm biased because I don't. I really like him as a person.
Yeah.
And I don't really care if my president is cool or not. But is there anything cooler than a president hitting a J and just walking off like, yeah, that's what I do? It's
just keeping it up there. Yeah.
Oh, I forgot to ask you. I want to ask you this one last thing. The ink that you have.
Yeah.
Is it after accident, and is there any meaning to it?
Yeah, so it's I have my whole sleeve done on my left arm, and it starts with my accident date, and then it's there's some different there's some different paths and stuff on there that I don't know if you can see really well with this camera, but and it basically is that Bible verse that I got, and it's a path leading me through significance, where I've got some flowers on there that are my wife and my kids, a microphone that is to speak my truth and to share my story, Paralympic logo, and God's bigger than your highs and lows, and just a compass of like wherever I go, whatever happens, there's a plan to it, there's a purpose to it,
And you have
yeah,
room for more stories.
I do, man. Yeah.
All right. Well, JoeDelagrave.com, Twitter at Joe Delagrave, JDelagrave14, speaker. Get this man to speak and inspire and get you thinking about how to get past your fears and how to live your best life. But we're going to be rooting for you in Tokyo. Hope you come back with some good stories, and looking forward to hearing about your experience and seeing the next steps for you. I really appreciate your time today. It was a great conversation, and look forward to another one.
Yeah, appreciate it. Matt, thanks for having me on the Wolff Den. I really appreciate it, man.
All right. Have a great weekend. Safe and fun holiday weekend. We're off on Monday. We'll be back on Tuesday with some more Wolff Den. Thanks a lot.
Awesome.